This week on the Back in the Day podcast, I sit down with my really good friend, Dr. Terri Gonzales-Ball. Dr. Terri is a child's play therapist. She's got tons of years of experience. In this episode, we sit down and we talk about what the heck is a play therapist. We talk about why she wanted to become a play therapist. And we talk about just growing up in an area where discussing mental health is not really something a lot of people do. And of course, we talk about our stories from back in the day. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. Enjoy!
Hey, are you talking about back in the day?
Nah, man. I'm talking about back in the day.
Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day.
Joining me on the Back in the Day podcast today is my good friend, Dr. Terri Gonzales-Ball. How are you today, Terri?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming in. I will be honest with you guys. I've known Terri for a long time. Terri is an important person in my life. She could be added as like a very top importance in my life because Terri is the person that introduced me to my wife. So if I don't know Terri, I don't have a wife, and I don't have the children that I have. So
I'm like that cornerstone.
Yeah, very big pressure for you, Terri, to perform in this interview because you already brought me a wife and children. So we're gonna need you to bring a good interview too. I have known you for what, like 12 years now?
Yeah. It's 12 years in 2009.
Okay.
Notorious 2009.
Yeah. 2009 was a good year. Terri met me at my in my truck club. I'll tell that. For whatever reason, did we tell you that? What did we tell you?
Y'all told me that you had this club in your truck, and you're like, it's a legit club, and your music was real loud, and you had some funky blue light in there, and so I'm like,
I had no blue light.
There was something glowing in your truck.
I don't know what that was. It might have just been our cell phone was on or something. But we went through this phase where we would call everything the club. Like even like 7-Eleven, like we would say to people, I don't know why. Me and my friends would be like, hey, you want to go to the club tonight? You want to go to 7-Eleven? And everyone was like, why do y'all call everything the club? Well, Terri, you are a play therapist.
I am.
You've been practicing for how many years now?
In my practice, I've been there almost 10 years.
10 years.
10-year anniversary.
What can you kind of describe play therapy for my listeners?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So play therapy, and I'm going to get real biased here, is the most developmentally appropriate approach to counseling with children. And so if you think about, like, can I say their names on here? No.
I really don't want you to.
My bad. We'll hold that out.
All right.
Think about your children, Mike. You didn't have to teach them how to play. They just innately know. And so we take their language, if you think of play as their language, and we use words. Toys are their words. So what I do is, as a counselor, I work with kids about 3 to 10 and a half years of age, and I provide words for them, and I build a relationship with them to help them work through anything that they need to, because kids learn how to express themselves through play. They learn about the world through play, and they work through their emotions through play, and so I meet them where they are at, and that's what a play therapist does.
So do you mostly just kind of like let them do their thing, and then you just kind of observe as they're going, or do you kind of like guide the conversation? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you guiding the conversation? How does like that work?
Some therapists are like that. I'm child-centered, so I believe that every child knows where they need to go, and I'm just kind of along for the ride. So I allow them to guide as far as what's going to happen in the playroom, what they want to play with, if they want to invite me, if I'm not invited. But I'm a very active observer, so I'm saying things out loud. I'm tracking their behavior. I'm responding to their feelings and reflecting those out loud. And that's one of the biggest parts is they hear that and they start to say, hey, I feel this way. Dr. Terri's just labeled it this way. And now I know a word for that feeling, and it builds up their emotional vocabulary as well. So it's interesting to watch. Then if they invite me in, I mean, we just continue to build on that relationship.
Do you sometimes like add in with the play? Like, are you playing too or no?
I am playing too, but I'm more of like, you're an actor. So they are the directors and I'm an actor kind of following their guidance. I don't add in like I would with my own children, you know, my own little voices or anything like that. I follow their direction. So if they're like, can you come over here and you're going to play this and you're going to be that, then I'm, you know, collaborating with them. And I wonder what I should say or wonder what I should do. And it gives them that that idea that, hey, I really am in charge of this and I can even be in charge of her and direct this play. So that's what it looks like when I'm there.
Is it hard to turn, like, when you're off of work, to turn like therapy brain off and then like go to mom?
No.
Or, no?
It's hard to not. I think this has probably been the hardest thing in my career is I'm not their therapist, and so I would like to be more integrated, I think, and be more of a therapist to them than I am mom. I
gotcha. What about like when you're around like other people's children?
That is hard.
That's hard. You're
just
like,
hard.
Okay.
I don't write notes down or anything, but
mental
I speak
notes?
that way to them. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
So you grew up in West Texas.
Yep.
Brownfield, Texas.
Yes.
Which if people don't know where Brownfield is, you can Google it. It's like 30 minutes from Lubbock, Texas.
It's very pretty.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
A lot of sights and sounds, great smells. Were you what's the town like? What was the size of that town? Like 5,000, 6,000?
No, it was 10,000 when I lived there. It's
Okay.
about 9,000 now. People moved away when I moved away.
Yeah, everyone's like, we got to get out of there.
gotta leave.
All the fun's gone.
Yeah.
Question for you though. So like, what made you want to get into therapy? Was that something that you had wanted to do as like when you were in high school? Like that was like the route you wanted to go? Was it once you were in your undergrad?
It was a long process, and so I think for my first job, because I worked with, they were first graders. It was like a summer school job, and I was a teacher assistant. I really just did copies and cut things out and played with the kids. But it was these kids that were at risk. They had developmental problems, or they were just, exhibiting disruptive behavior. And they weren't sure if they were going to do well in second grade. So they would keep them in the summer, and I started working with them. And it was really cool to see, like, how it's, turned back and circled back around to that's what I work with now. But from that moment on, I was like, no matter what I do, I'm going to work with kids because I love it. Like, it was really awesome working with them and helping them to grow and see that. I just knew I didn't want to teach. So when I started undergrad, I thought I was going to be a doctor, like a medical doctor. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, which is weird. I don't know why I wanted to operate on kid brains, but I did. And then I got to organic chemistry, and I wasn't that smart in there. And so I was like, oh, I'm doing really well with these psychology, classes. I'm kind of going to change I didn't drop the med school part, but I dropped that biology major. And then I started, really liking people more. Didn't know what I was going to do until the summer before I was the semester before I was graduating. They put me in a child advocacy center. Mm-hmm. And I was just there kind of supervising these visits between these abused children and their parents that they'd been taken away from. And I cried a lot, and that was really hard. But I was really fascinated by that world. And then the therapist was like, why don't you come along and just kind of help us set up things? And so I just got to see this other world. And the play therapists were like, why don't you take an undergraduate class in play therapy and see how you do? Because I think you might like it. Had never heard of it before. So I went and I did that at UNT, and I fell in love. And from then on, that's where it happened.
What's your undergrad in?
It's in psychology, and then I have a criminal justice minor because I like murder for some reason.
That's creepy.
It is pretty creepy.
Let me talk to y'all's kids for a little bit. But I also really like murder. So
right, and real murder, not the fake murder, not CSI stuff like Dateline.
Well, okay, we're gonna talk. You really like those shows?
I do. I watch them grossly.
What's your number one that you're into right now?
I like Dateline. There's this one that what is his name? It's on Netflix. I just watched it. I didn't like it. I got creeped out, but it was about that guy that what is his name? He was in California. He was killing people through their windows. Night Stalker.
Oh.
Yeah, Night Stalker.
That's creepy as all get out.
It really was. But I don't know. I think I'm fascinated by like what got this person to be the way that they are. Not that I'm happy about what happens, but I want to understand them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you want to have an idea of like what were the steps that took you to become this night stalker.
Yeah.
So okay, I find it interesting that you became like in the mental health field, right? Because I'm going to put a big assumption that people out in the area that you grew up in don't talk a lot about mental health.
Not
Is that
at all.
true?
Not at all. Yeah.
Like it's almost like a taboo thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's grown a little bit since I've been gone, but it's just, you don't go to therapy, and especially in my culture, like you don't go to therapy, you just kind of brush things under the rug and just keep living life and accept things as they are.
Did people that you grew up with or people in your family find it kind of odd that you were doing that, or like they thought it was weird or didn't really understand?
They didn't, not really like my friends that I grew up with. And I don't know that my parents really understand what I do. Like they tell people I'm a child psychologist or a psychiatrist. And I'm like, I didn't get a doctor, or I didn't go to med school. Like I didn't do that. And people say those types of things. I think they were just like, oh, she's in school and she's doing something. So they were proud.
Yeah.
More of like my grandparents and stuff.
Yeah, they're just like, she does something with kids. And she has a doctor.
Yeah, she works with kids and she helps them, but we don't know why.
And she wears a lab coat. Like,
yeah.
They don't know. They don't have any
I don't know
idea.
what they think I do. But.
Did you have that growing up? Like, were you always trying to, like, solve problems with your friends? Like, were you like that little girl on, what is it? The Peanuts, the Lucy that's like, talk to me about your problems.
Actually, this is embarrassing. No, up until 5th grade, I wasn't a bully, but I had like a group of friends, and I usually became the leader. Mm-hmm. And I was really bossy, and so they did what I wanted to do, and nobody really could be their friends unless I was part of that piece. Yeah, it was really sad. And then my mom found out that I was real exclusive like that, and I got in a lot of trouble in 5th grade, and it changed my whole life. Like I became really nice after that.
That's crazy story, because if you ever meet Terri might be like the nice, like only has positive things to say. So
it changed my life.
What were some of the things that kids had to do in order to be in your group?
Well, I'm thinking about kindergarten. There was this girl, and we're friends now, but she had bangs that were like here, and they were just cut straight across, and you couldn't see her eyes, and I wouldn't play with her. Like, crap like that. Real crap like that.
My sister had real bad bangs in elementary school, and my mom used to make them for her, and she told us this like later on. Like, she didn't tell us when it was happening, but she told us as an adult that kids used to tell her that she had bugs in her hair. It looked like she had bugs in her hair.
Bangs are everything back then.
Like, why would I tell anyone like that? And she's like, I didn't want to hurt mom's feelings because she...
That's so sad, poor Erica.
That was you. That was you telling
me.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any other requirements besides that their bangs had to be legit?
I don't know that I had requirements. It was just, and it was all vain. Like, there was the thing that changed my life was there was this girl, and she's gorgeous, fair skin. I mean, but really like kind of like that light, like very, very light skin, and everyone made fun of her about it. Just and she always wanted to be a part of our group. And I wouldn't reject her really just overtly, but, she'd say, we're wearing the same shirt. And I'd be like, oh, it's not the same color. Just crap like that.
It's like, especially not on that skin.
Just a kid, if I knew a kid like that, being like that to my kids or anything, I'd be upset. And I was one of those kids. And so a teacher heard that, and I got sent to the principal's office. And this changed my life. Like, that's the way that is the reason I am the way I am now. My mom never knew any of this, and they called my mom. And so she's like, just looking at me. My mom, real sweet, real little, looking at me with these disappointed eyes. And when I got home, she's just like, I'm not raising a child to be unkind or to leave people out or to make people feel bad about themselves. And I'm really, disappointed in you. And that crushed my soul. Like, I was like, oh, my gosh. And so it took me a long time because of pride to say sorry to this little girl. But I started eventually like inviting her, into our group, and we eventually became really good friends in high school.
I'd like to also have her on the podcast, just
to hear her perspective on me.
How it changed her life. So that's 5th grade. You got in trouble with the principal.
Yeah.
Were you okay? So now you become nice, right? You're no longer not a bully, but kind of a little bit of, right? You're no longer that person anymore.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, okay, so you then in middle school, were you just like good kid, sweet teacher, like do anything for the teacher type kid, or what were you like growing up in class? Were you like just kind of quiet? Were you
That's never
loud?
quiet. Never quiet. I talk my whole life, as you can see now. I got really good grades, and most of my teachers liked me a lot, unless I talked too much in their class. I was kind of sneaky, and I think I'm still this way, where I do what I follow the rules until I don't want to follow the rules, and then I won't follow the rules there. And that's kind of what I was like. I did what I was supposed to at school and in sports and whatever my parents said, but then I'd get home and I'm like, these kids have more leniency than I do, so I'll hang out with them for a little bit or sneak around. Or I tried to run away in 7th grade.
Tried to run away?
To Coleman Park.
Wait, how far was that from your house?
I don't know. I mean, you've been in Brownfield, so it's it's like 5 minutes. I was hanging out in this creek in this ditch with these kids that didn't have rules, and my dad showed up like 10 minutes later.
Man, you ran away for about 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I got a curfew violation in 7th or 8th grade. We spent the night at one of our friends' house, and I didn't know that curfew violation was a thing. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, I didn't know that
And
either.
so I guess if you're in Carrollton, I don't know what it is in other cities, but in Carrollton where I grew up, if you are under the age of 17, you have to be home by midnight.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either until I got the violation. And so we were out and we were TPing a house, and we TP'd someone's house. And then when we were leaving, this like car of like teenagers came in, teenagers, young adults, like 20, 21, 19 or whatever, they cornered us, right? And they're like, they come out and they're like ready, like, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we just TP'd our friend's house. And they're like, no, what are you really doing? And we're like, we just TP'd someone's house. We have toilet paper in our hand. And they were like, yeah, well, there's been a bunch of robberies going on around here, and it fits the description just like you. And they pointed to this kid that I was with, right? And so they were like about ready to jump us or something. I don't know what they were going to do. We're like 12, 13 years old. And then luckily, this guy pulls up, this like dad, sees what's happening. He goes, hey, what's going on or whatever. And they tell him kind of what's going on and everything. And the dad was like, no, we're going to do this the right way. You guys aren't going to beat up these children. So they call the police. The police come. We get this freaking curfew violation. It was like $300.
Wow.
Right? My mom, we got to go to the court, everything. Like, I had to go to court. Judge gives us like $300. And my mom was like, you're going to do customer service. We're not paying for this. Right? So, or not customer service, community service, not customer. Yeah, you got to go to customer service. You got to fix people's problems. That's what you got to do. AT&T, you're going to be on customer service for a couple hours. People going to call you. You're going to have to troubleshoot stuff. Is that what you really want to do, son? Right? Like, that would be like the worst punishment ever.
It
like,
would be.
You just sit there all day having to like fix people's problems. I swear I'll never sneak out again, Mom.
Right.
But community service, right? And my mom, we pull up and like we're about to do and like get everything set up, and they talk about how many times she's gonna have to bring me to this. And she's like, hold on, I gotta take him to all of this stuff.
So now it's inconvenient.
And she goes, how much is it again? And they were like $300. And she goes, shit. And she just writes the check and she goes, you're gonna pay me back. And I had to pay all that money back. And I don't know if you've ever had to make $300 in 8th grade.
No.
But it takes a long time to make $300. Like,
So you worked out here's 25 cents.
Months, yeah. Like, but my mom was there who paid me. That's where my money was from. So it was like my mom giving me money, me giving her the money back. So that's my sneaking out, running away.
But
So
you could have been killed.
What's that?
You could have been killed.
I could have been jumped.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, your husband wasn't with us that night.
I was wondering that.
Yeah. He wasn't.
I'm like, he's the one they thought was the robber.
No. But he knows whose house I was at. Some kid, and then when we got to like the court or whatever, we didn't know this kid. He had just like moved into our school that year, and we all would like spend the night at his house all the time. And and when we got to the court, the kid had like all these priors. We were like, oh my gosh, like he had like gone on a rampage one at his old wherever he lived before, and like knocked a bunch of windows out of like people's houses for like no reason. Just like knocked them all out. We spent the night at this kid's house. I'm not gonna say his name. I don't know if I really remember all of his name, but we spent the night at his house, and when we got there, there was like no rules. Like their house was this big old 2-story house, but it had no furniture.
Really?
Like it had like a couch, and then all the rooms there were just mattresses on the grounds. It was a weird place. It's an interesting place.
Yeah,
you know?
like those are the type of kids
and
that get sent to me.
Those are the type of kids that whose houses you're allowed.
That's like the Night Stalker's
yeah,
house.
probably. You know, he's probably who you watched a documentary on.
For sure.
Okay, so you go from being not bad kid, but you know, like mob boss kid to teen kindness.
Yeah.
You said you played sports.
Uh-huh.
What sports did you play?
I mean, you know how fast I am. I'm real fast.
Terry's got a lot of speed.
I do.
You know, like if you ever get to play a sport with Terry, that's what she's known for is speed. You didn't do track, did you?
I did, but
What?
just to keep in
Wait,
shape.
what?
They say she has endurance. That's all they would say about me.
Oh my gosh. How bad was y'all's track team that you were on the team?
I mean, everyone got to be on the team. Everyone.
track?
Yeah. You didn't really have to try out, but then like the all-stars, like my sister and them were, you know, on the relays, and I was like the 400. Because I'd last. I just wasn't fast.
Well, it's one lap. It's not
Yeah.
like who's dying out after one. I'd make it the entire
No.
lap. What 16-year-old kid can't run in one lap?
Right.
What okay, so you mentioned kind of that earlier when we were talking that your first job was with kids. That was your very first job?
My
was
very
doing
first job.
something with kids?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any other jobs besides that? Like typical 16, 17-year-old kid jobs?
I don't think my dad made me work. It was just surprising because he's like all about work. He didn't make me work until I think my senior year. I was in DECA. It was just like this class I got to take. And so I worked at the Chamber of Commerce as a secretary.
So you never had one of those like high school kid jobs?
No.
Never had to deal with...
Well, I did a lot of sports, and so I had a lot of stuff going on.
What did you do at the Chamber of Commerce?
I got to do the marquee, like the big sign. I got to put the stuff up there. I'd run errands. I had to take the minutes at their board meetings. And then I'd just sit there and talk to the guy that worked there all the time.
God.
I mean, it was an easy job. Super easy.
It sounds super easy. So
Yeah.
you didn't ever have to like take out trash or like,
every
you know what I
once
mean?
in a while.
Like one of those type of jobs where you had to like clean up after people, or one of those grunt jobs that most 16-year-old. Because what was the job that you're okay? I've always found that kind of interesting. So in like towns like that,
Yeah.
what are the jobs that like most teenagers are doing?
A lot of my friends would work at McDonald's or Mr. Gatti's. They did a lot of like the restaurant jobs.
Okay.
Or Sonic. Sonic was a really popular one because that's where the drag was. And so if you got that job, it was kind of like you're still out. But I didn't work there. So
What was the Brownfield drag? How far was it? What did people hit up?
So you start at Sonic, you go around Sonic, and then you go all the way down Lubbock Road. And then you pass, I can't remember, the Sundance Bank is where everybody would park. You pass there, and you either park there or you loop around 7-Eleven and you come back.
Nice. For those of you that don't know what a drag is, because I didn't know what it was until I was 19, a drag this is what people do in small towns, is where they just basically get in a car
Yeah.
and they just drive a certain route.
Until their party gets planned. That's what happens.
Until something happens. I went to junior college out in West Texas, and like when I first got there, they were like, "Hey, you're gonna go do a drag." I was like, "What?" And then you go do a drag. I was like, "No, I don't smoke." Exactly what I said. I don't smoke. And they're like, "No. A drag is where we get a case of beer, we drive around, we drink that case of beer until we're done." I was like, "Well, that's a DWI. Like that's not entertainment. You know what I mean?"
Yeah.
So all right. So name of the podcast is called Back in the Day. Talk about different themes on it. This season, we're talking about jobs. Okay. Tell me a story about a job that you either inappropriately quit, like no notice, anything like that, or that you got fired from.
I think you know a bit of the story.
Okay.
So back in 2009, that notorious year.
That's a good year.
I met all these people, and my husband, I met him in January, and we were going out a lot, and a lot. So back that up. I had had this job for almost 2 years at a private preschool in Frisco, and I was a floater where they'd put you in all these things. This incident happened in March. That December, prior to that, I had gotten Teacher of the Year. So I was doing good there. I was doing well. I was in school and stuff. Start going out a lot with these people, and you one of them. And I started being late, which isn't weird for me because, before Noah, I was always late. But, like, more than 5 minutes late, like 10 minutes late here, 15 minutes late here. And so I think it was mid-February, my boss calls me in there, and he's like, hey, has all this paperwork. He's like, I got to put you on probation for being late because the assistant directors are complaining and I can't give you preferential treatment. And so you have to shape it up for, I thought he said 30 days. So that's important there.
Okay.
So he says, I got to shape it up 30 days. So I'm like, all right. And he's like, can't be late or I have to let you go. And I don't want to do that. Oh, yeah. So I shaped it up for that 30 days. Well, after the 30 days and the end of March, and this is a month that I wasn't talking to my husband. I stopped talking to him for that month. I was late. I think it was like 10 minutes. I didn't even clock in because I was scared. So I went to work. They let me work all day long. And then they sent me to the kindergarten room. I'm walking with this little girl. And I feel James behind me, or my boss. And he's like, hey, when you get a minute, when you get back to the room, can you come to my office for a second? I'm like, yeah, sure. Not thinking anything. And then the little girl hugs me real tight. And she always hugged me. But she's like, oh, don't leave. Please come back. And I'm like, what? Of course I'm coming back. Like, I'll be back. Send her to the room, go to his office, and he's sitting there all sad with a bunch of paperwork. And he's just like, I'm looking at him, and he's like, I have to let you go. And I'm like, what? He's like, I told you you can't be late again or I have to let you go. And I was like, but that was 30 days. And he's like, it doesn't work like that. And so he's all, upset about it. And I'm like, oh, and I'm upset. And then he's like, look, I'm not going to make you do the walk of shame, which if you've been in a preschool, every classroom is just nothing but glass. And so the walk of shame was when he would fire somebody, he would walk them to this classroom, get all their stuff, and then every person in the building watched you walk to this back corner to leave.
How often were they firing people at this preschool?
There was a lot of people getting fired. And I had seen people do that walk of shame. He's like, I don't want to make you do that. I'll wait for you at the deal. Just go get your bag from kindergarten. But my bag was in 3-year-old, so I lied to that girl. I never came back. Like, she asked me to come back. Dang. I said I would and never came back. Girl. I go get my bag. I go to the corner, and he's waiting for me there. And he's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, me too. So I leave, start crying. And so 3 things were funny about that. One was there's this guy during that month I wasn't talking to Tim that had been asking me on a date for like 4 times, and every time something happened. And we had a date that night, and I'm crying. And so I call him. I'm like, hey, I can't go on this date with you, Derek. Like, I just can't. I got fired today. So I never saw that guy again.
It's like the worst. Like,
I know, right?
Why would you not? Like, you could still go on. Like, you know what I mean?
But
like
I was upset.
Well, no, I know, but from the guy's perspective, like
it's like clearly she doesn't want to see me.
No, because think about it, right? Like, wait, you can't go do something with me because all of your time just got freed up. Like that, like you know, like that's
so
like,
true.
Like, hey, listen. I'm not gonna be able to make it tonight because literally everything that I have to do for the next whenever is gone. I have no responsibilities anymore, so we can't hang out.
No, we can't do it. Yeah, so we never talked again. The second was that I had gone a month without talking to my husband, and he had started calling that week, and he called me that night. This is like a Wednesday, and I'm upset, and so we're just talking, and I tell him what happened, and he laughed. I was like, I got fired today, and he like straight up laughed at me. I was like, why are you laughing? And he's like, you got fired? That's hilarious. Like, that's how he comforted me. That's why I married him, because he's just a comforter. And then the third was I had this friend, Kristen, and 3 weeks before this happened, she got fired from her job. And so she had been looking for a job, and I think 2 weeks before this happened, I had gotten her an interview at our place, but they didn't hire her because they didn't have a spot. So Thursday morning, she calls me, and she's all excited, and she's like, hey, the preschool called, and they have a spot for me. We're going to work together. And I'm like, that was my spot. I got fired yesterday. So she literally took my job, yeah. She's like, oh, do you mind? I'm like, well, what am I going to do?
And I called up Derek.
Yeah. We're going on a date with Derek.
Saturday.
Yeah.
He says he's got a lot of time open now too. And he only dates girls that hold down a job.
Right. So
Was that okay? Is that why? No. Why did you get fired before or after when we had like that week-long spring break?
It was after that.
It was after.
Yeah, because that kept going.
Okay. Oh, because y'all were off because it was spring break.
Yeah.
Terri and one of her friends, and then me and two of my friends, we did this like in March of 2009. This like this 12-year-old style spring break. Like we just played basketball and racquetball, and like it was like if like 12-year-olds would have had no rules, that was our spring break. We ate all the time. We watched a lot of basketball. We played basketball, played racquetball. This poor girl, not Terry, but the other one. We just her apartment complex had all the great amenities, and we just used those amenities. Even after we weren't, we had our keys to her amenity thing. We played a lot of racquetball.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, okay. So, but what? Okay, after you get fired from that preschool, what did you do after that? I don't think I remember.
So 3 days later, my cousin that I was living with, Abel. Or I'm not supposed to say names. Whatever.
You can say names.
Abel
It's up
doesn't
to
care.
you. That's their identity, not mine. I mean,
Abel is working for an orthodontist, and she needed a nanny. And so 3 days later, I get this nanny job that paid double anything that I was making there. And I was like, sweet. And I worked there for 2.5 years.
did you call up your friend and be like, "Hey, remember how you took my
Yeah,
job?"
I told everyone. I was like, check it out. I went from 13 an hour to 20 an hour. And so,
You're like, "Hey, Derek."
yeah, I got all this money.
That's awesome. Okay, so what led so after your nannying, so did you nanny all through like graduate school too?
So I finished my master's that year, and I nannied into my 2.5 year of my doctorate, and then I was TAing, and then I was teaching undergraduate courses. So I started having like academic jobs.
So like basically once you got your PhD, you were just like ready. Like there was no gap in between.
There really
graduating.
wasn't. I had this. It was at Jake's wedding. I had this phone call that was because it was a year before I was going to graduate with my PhD, and I wasn't even looking for a job. And the play therapist that had been in my practice at Preston Place had quit, and there was a guy that worked there that remembered me from the master's program. And so he called up to the school and asked, "Is she still working? Does she want this job?" And I was like, "I'll just go entertain the interview." And it was just this practice that was established, laid out. Here's your playroom, everything that I wanted. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take it.
Did you get that book of clients too, or?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Set up.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a lot of book of clients because she had left and they had been okay. So
okay.
I was still scrambling.
Then so you could practice without having your PhD?
You can practice without your PhD. You cannot practice without your full licensure. So I was still a LPC intern. And so I had to be under somebody, and he had to pay me instead of them paying me directly.
I got you. Makes sense. So you like an apprentice,
Yeah.
It's cool. All right, question for you. Last question for you. All right, this is a difficult one. All right.
I know.
Okay, if money was not an object, money doesn't matter. Okay, you don't have to pay bills. You don't have to do anything. Time wasn't no time. You don't have to worry about anything else. Besides being a play therapist, what is the one job that you would do?
This is funny because I'm not good at this, but I would be like a famous singer, I think. Like if it was nothing, if I could do it.
No, you still have to have talent.
Oh, I have to have talent. Oh, dang it.
You don't just
It can't be
there's no
like a
genie.
fantasy.
There's no what's
don't
on that
know.
you think that you would do if none of that stuff happened? What we can do is you could be singer, but maybe not famous.
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't.
You don't know? So
I always said that if I wasn't this, I might be an investigator. Like,
Okay.
Like not a private investigator, but like, a cop that investigates murders.
or like some kind of like investigative journalist or something.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool, I guess. I don't really want to write, but
Okay.
somebody else write whatever I
Yeah,
investigate.
there you go. You
That'd be
investigate. All right, write the story.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe that'll work out for you. Well, maybe one day
Maybe.
you'll become an investigative play therapist. Somehow, you just find stuff. Who knows?
Or I
Okay.
become a singer. I could.
There you go. You can
Could
become a
happen.
singer. Start singing. Maybe in your next session, with someone, you should just sing and see how that
See if it
goes.
sees 'em.
Yeah, see if it goes out with it. And they're like, man, that was the best session we've had. Right? Okay, so where can people find you? Like, where do they find anything that you want to plug or anything? You want to plug your practice or anything? You don't have to if you don't want to.
I am at Preston Place Counseling. It's in Dallas off of Preston and 635. So I see children, I see teenagers, and individual adults. I do not work with couples. Just so you know that.
Right. All right. Well, Terri, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out Terri. You can find me online on Instagram at HeHeMikeP. You can find me on Facebook if I get my Facebook back because I got hacked today. Facebook.com/Michael Pasvar. And you can also subscribe to the podcast. See you guys next time. Thanks.